This is the Note Closer Show, where you get the latest developments in distressed note investing and learn the secrets of how you can control millions of dollars worth of property for pennies on the dollar. Get educated and entertained by someone who has closed thousands of deals and lives to support you in achieving the same. Now, here's your host, CEO of We Close Notes, Scott Carson.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Note Closer Show. As always, Scott Carson, excited to be with you here today. And I'll tell you right now, ladies and gentlemen, jacked up with today's topic for you. We're going to talk about short-term versus long-term goals as a note investor and talk about how to identify them, how to kind of put them out, and how to kind of back-end engineer them to find success. All right. So let's talk about two big goals. And I often kind of roll this back to what you're ultimately trying to do and trying to accomplish as a note or real estate investor. Now, one of the things that we always do with our 3-day workshops is talk about how to make six figures in 12 to 18 months, 250K in 12 months, basically. And that comes down to identifying what your income goals are. Now, income goals can vary. If you love what you do, and you're working full time, you've got a career and note investing is a hobby, that's great. Nothing wrong with that. Kudos to you. And we have plenty of investors like that note investing is just a hobby. It's a side hustle. They do it some fun. They dabble in it with rentals or whatever they might be doing in their portfolio. That's totally okay. But a lot of people want to eventually make note investing some sort of full-time, all that they do, transitioning out the workforce into being a business owner and entrepreneur in the note industry. And you have to take a look at where you're at now and what you need to accomplish before you can go from a part-time side hustle to the full-time day in, day out note investor, where that's what you focus on. So what I always tell people is like look at your bottom line. What are you making per month right now? Hopefully it's enough to pay your bills. But if you the first starting point is looking at what you have coming in, what you're working. If you're making $3,000 or $5,000 per month, that would be initially the first number that you need to put down as a KPI. Now, what is a KPI? It's a key performance indicator. Okay. These are numbers that you kind of guide yourself by and how you're doing or how bad you're doing or how not you're doing in your guide or your goal to accomplishing whatever your why is. Now, your why could be not to leave your job. Maybe it's to retire your spouse. Maybe it's to pay for your kids' education. Maybe it's to retire your grandparents. There's a whole lot of other whys out there. This doesn't be, I'm leaving my job because I hate my boss. He can take this job and shove it. No. You have to outline your why and what that is. And whatever that why might be, you got to figure out what's it going to cost to get to that why. So I guess if you're making $5,000 a month and you want to leave your job, that would be the first number you look at. $5,000, $60,000 a year. If you need to retire your wife or your husband, bring them home from their job, figure out what that costs. If it's if you're trying to pay for your kids' education, what's that going to cost per year? And how many years do you have to do that? And kind of figure out what you need to put in place. Whatever that number is that you reach towards, look, don't go quit right now. Don't quit your job right now. A lot of people have done, I'm quitting what I'm doing and I'm going to be a full-time note investor. That's the wrong thing to do. Note investing is not a get rich quick. It takes time. The average deal is going to take longer, but the returns are higher because we are getting better discounts and have higher returns because we are getting things at a better discount and multiple exit strategies. No matter what the government does with exit strategies, there's ways to make money in note investing, whether it's foreclosing or modification or selling the notes off, or a variety of the different exit strategies that we'll cover on a later episode. But let's take a look at what your numbers are. Let's say $5,000 is a number that you want to be making in the next 12 to 24 months so that you can do A, right? Whatever A is for you, what's your number one goal A is, you need to make $5,000 per month to do that. That's great. That's $60,000 a year. That is a feasible number. And it is you can accomplish that in a couple different ways. My first belief is that you should look for notes, non-performing notes that are owner occupied because you have a higher chance of those getting reperforming. People that aren't paying their bills now, get them reperforming. There's some sort of loan modification, forbearance agreement. Hey, you didn't pay the bank. Previously, hey, start making payments. You've been paid in 2-3 years. Start making payments for every payment you make now. We'll forgive an extra payment or do something like that until you get back on track. There's a whole variety of different ways. We'll get to that later on. But identifying notes, like I said, owner-occupied notes, owner-occupied assets where the borrower has not paid in a while, that you can get at a discount. And look at, I would be looking at payments made, I'm sorry, the payment amount to be at least $250 or more a month. Okay, prefer 500, but if you're not using your own money, and this is a big caveat, if you don't have your own money, it actually, I think it works in your favor. If you have your own funds, yes, it works. You can use your own funds to buy deals and get started, but you don't market most of the time. Hate to say it, but it's one of the big Achilles heels of real estate investors we see that have a lot of money saved, or they're moving out, they're using to use their 401k or self-directed IRA. They don't market. They just will not market no matter what it is. And that drives me bonkers, because at some point you're going to use up your 80 grand or 800,000 or whatever you might have in your bank or your retirement account because you have it tied up in deals. It's good to have the money, but use other people's money. And we actually see investors that don't have their own money do a better job because they embrace the need to market. They embrace the need to contact self-directed IRA investors. They embrace the need to use the the tripod that we discussed in the earlier episode here about using LinkedIn and email and video to get the word out what they're doing to market. Okay. And so one of the most important things that you can do is, okay, we want 5 grand per month. Let's break it down. How many deals do I need to do? How many deals do I need to make offers on? And here's what it comes down to. If you take that 5 grand per month and divide by $500 per month, that comes down to 10 deals, right? 10 deals. You need to close 10 deals between now and 12 months if that's your goal. It's good to have a launch pad or a runway to get rock and roll, because it's going to take you 60 to 90 days probably to identify and closing your first deal, and then get it rocking and rolling back and forth. Now, don't get me wrong, there are going to be deals you get accepted that you're going to cancel through due diligence. Like, oh, this deal did not turn out what it should be. It happens all the time. I canceled a couple of deals yesterday. I got them approved, and as I'm diving into the due diligence side, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense because the value is a lot less. The numbers don't make sense on what my winning bid was. I have to fade my bid, and the seller didn't want to allow me to fade my bid. What fading my bid means is reducing my bid, because through due diligence, the numbers came back differently than what we were shown. It only happens all the time. But anyway, so you need to close. That's close on 10 note deals in the next 12 months. That's less than 1 a month. But how many offers do you need to make? Well, I'm a big proponent that you're probably going to have a 10% closing ratio on stuff that you get accepted. That means if you need to close on 10 deals, that means you need to have 100 offers basically accepted. Okay. Now, how many offers do you need to submit to get that 100 accepted initially? It's accepted initially on the front end. That varies. It all depends on how aggressive you are. It all depends on what you're bidding on. We've got some students, I made 500 offers. I said, well, but you bid them on Fannie Mae loans and you guys just ridiculously low prices. They weren't going to accept it. And I actually told you not to bid on those, and you still bid anyway. So the thing to keep in mind here, what's the likelihood when you make a bid? If you're really bidding to win that deal, of course, you want to make sure that if you've got your own funds, you're bidding in an amount that makes sense for your returns, what type of return on investment you're looking for. But also, if you're using other people's money, what are you going to have to pay them to take deals down? So we always say, if you're bidding on assets, especially that you can get reperforming, occupied, you're going to figure in probably around making a bid initially by taking the principal and interest payment times 12 and dividing that by your purchase price roughly to get around a 20 to 25% cash on cash return. Or the easy thing is taking your P&I times 12 and multiplying it times 4 to equal your 25% return for the most part. That's what it comes down to initially on that. Now, obviously, if you've got a low interest rate, 3%, you're not going to make money unless you offer 25% of the unpaid to really have it work out well. But that's another day for a spreadsheet or a calculator for it. But anyway, going back to your runway, I need to get 10 accepted offers. I need to close on 10 deals. I need to make 100 offers. That comes down to what now? That's about 8 times 12 is 96, right? No, 8 times 12 is 108. So, no, 106. 8 times 12 is 106. No, 8 times 12 is 96. Golly, Mrs. Snyder would be upset about my math skills there. So basically you need make about 8 offers a month. That's 2 a week that you hope to get really accepted, that you end up closing on 1 out of 10 of those. We see that happen. I've seen students like Adam Adams and others that got 14 accepted in their first time out, and then they only end up closing on 1 because they realize they overbid or the due diligence killed a lot of them. I've also seen people, make offers on 20 and get 10 accepted and close on 4 or 5. So it all depends on the seller, the asset. I'm just trying to give you some rough numbers to kind of put at. You're gonna have to adjust your numbers on what you're bidding on. So anyway, that's 10 offers, bringing in 10 approved offers, closed, or making at least $500 a month payment. Okay, that's getting you to your $5,000 in 12 months. Now you have to figure out too, how much time do you have to commit to this? Because getting 100 offers is probably means you need to make roughly, you need to look at 400 to 500 note deals that you're breaking down and doing due diligence on. Now, if you're, let's just say 400, well, that's roughly about, you may be looking at 35 to 40 notes per month. That's 10 notes per week on an average basis for you. That's doable if you will market. If you'll market for asset managers on LinkedIn, some of the different hedge funds, other investors or Facebook groups, you can do it, but you've got to market, and you got to be willing to, hey, ask, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I need, and go from there. All right. So one of the great things that you guys can also do is start tracking this stuff. Okay. Now, on average, let's run some numbers. Now, on every deal that you make an offer on, is it going to reperform? No, it's not. Okay. So you're not just going to get money from the $500 a month coming in. Now, if you're originating stuff, yeah, you can set that up. But honestly, if you close on 10 note deals, you're probably going to get 5 or 6 that get reperforming, or, at least get the bar shows success. That the other half is going to be probably split up between deed and liens, where the borrower signs the property over deed and walks away, and or foreclosing, where you go the legal route to foreclose to get them to walk away, cash or keys, maybe, who knows. But out of those half, so let's just say half get reperforming, the other half turn into an REO of some sort. Either they're, like I said, they've walked away, you've paid them to walk away, or you've gone the legal route to foreclose. Those REO deals that have become from the non-performing note side are your bigger checks. You're going to have bigger checks, and I would say don't get involved in something you aren't going to make at least 10 to 20 grand on if you've got to take the property through foreclosure, rehab, stuff like that. Why I say this is because you're obviously going to have some people that aren't paying their mortgage, like we see with the foreclosure and eviction moratorium. Yeah, you can foreclose, may take a little while longer to foreclose or evict to take the property back. This is why you may want to look at as cash for keys as an option, and make sure you're having extra funded when you're purchasing the notes, or put a little money aside, before you go the foreclosure route and drop $3,000 or $5,000, depending on what state you're in. You may want to offer that, but as a deed in lieu cash for keys situation, see if the borrowers will walk and move on from there. It's a different time out there, but going back to your full-time versus part-time activity, if you needed, like I said, $5,000 per month at $500 per note deal, that means you need close on 10 in the first 12 months. That means really getting offers accepted on 100, and probably making offers roughly around on 400 assets, or looking at 400 assets and working through them to get to that final 10. Look, the yield on these things are higher. Some people are like, wow, that's a lot. Look, it's actually a lot cheaper to do the note business, because you could do this on your part-time basis. You can do it after hours, at lunch breaks in the morning, in the evenings, or the 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. side of things. You can also don't have to worry about dropping thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in direct mail campaigns. That's one of the biggest things that a lot of people look at, especially as they get into investing. And this doesn't matter if it's note investing, fix and flipping, whatever. It's the upfront cost to market to get your thing rock and roll, especially if you don't have a big amount of investment dollars to put towards your mail campaigns. It's expensive to drop postcards, foreclosure letters, yellow letters, no matter what type of list. It often costs to buy the list, and you're going to have obviously mail and stamps and time to do it. And then you've got to do it repeat basis to get a 1 to 4% response rate. Okay. In the note business side, you're not doing direct mail. It's all LinkedIn, email, or phone calls, which is a whole lot cheaper. And one source can lead to multiple offers versus your direct mail campaigns are often targeting one borrower, one homeowner who's got one property. Yeah, they may have a couple. I get it. Probate leads may lead to other things. I'm not talking about those. Those are great. But the mass majority of people that are marketing to foreclosures and short sales and out-of-state owners, those borrowers or those property owners have one property. Hence why you've got to drop so many postcards and direct mail pieces to get multiple people responding to you. Well, the banks, when we're dealing with banks or note sellers, these sources don't just have one deal most of the time. They often have hundreds of deals every month, every quarter that they are cycling through. Now, some banks and lenders only sell once a year. Others will sell on a constant basis. As I've said before, everybody's a buyer, a seller, or a funding source when it comes down to note investing. And it also comes down to marketing too. Everybody's a funding source. Everybody's looking for a good return on their retirement, whether they've got 20 grand or 200 grand or more, they're looking for a good return on investment. So going back to your schedule, going back to your runway to go from part-time to full-time or getting started, you have to understand those numbers. How many times do I need to look at assets? I need to look at 35 to 40 a month. That's 10 a week. Great. How do I get that 10 a week? Well, what you have to do with that 10 a week is start that marketing process. That's either doing a drip mail campaign, and drip mail, what we mean by that is an email campaign out to asset managers, banks, and this would be something that you do via either email. And we go through this really intense in our 3-day workshop about, hey, how do you pull lists of asset managers? How do you contact them? I mean, there's a variety of ways to find asset managers. Texas Savings and Mortgage Lending. You could look at Lane Guide. You could look at Distress Pro, Scotsman Guide. You could just literally jump on LinkedIn and type in a few job titles to pull lists of stuff. You can look at events. I mean, you can jump on and look at the county records for assignment of mortgages who are buying and selling and whatnot and contact them directly. There are plenty of deals out there because there's plenty of notes still moving hands. What you don't see, and I hate to say this, but a lot of the list websites, the websites that have had lists from traders or people put lists, websites for you to go and cherry pick, they're picked over. They're not really a great source. And I used to be a fan of a couple of them. And I looked at them recently, like, man, there's nothing on here that makes sense. They've allowed investors to post stuff on there that really isn't a deal. It's crap and stuff that gets drug out. And then the telling sign is when you see the company that owns the listing website, them marketing their own deals through other sources. It tells you that they can't even sell their own stuff. That doesn't bode well for investors trying to find stuff that makes sense. So I think if you always go and above and beyond, especially a lot of investors don't want to do the direct mail. I mean, the emailing, I mean, that's a sad thing. That's really easy to do. It's one of the biggest lifebloods of your business. They don't want to pick up the phone and call. They want the low hanging fruit. And I know we're all inherently lazy. What's the least amount that I have to do? Nothing. You could sit there and not do anything, but you're not going any further along in your goals. So setting that income goal is really one of the most important things that you can do. Hey, I need to make $5,000 a month in cash flow from this to cover my bills. Now, here's the thing. You hit that $5,000 mark. Yeah, you're covered. That doesn't mean quit right then. You need to hold on to that for a little while. I always tell people, hey, if you hit your income mark, if you can handle it, stay for 6 more months to kind of sock that money aside. That comes from the old financial advisor. You should have 6 months of reserves of some sort if you can on the sidelines that in case you do quit, because you're going to have peaks and valleys. And while making $60,000 an investor is actually taking home more money than if you worked for a job and paid income taxes and all that stuff, you still have other expenses. If you need health insurance, you got to think about that because that's probably going to go away if you leave your job or unless it's covered by your spouse. Look at your other costs. You're going to have some more marketing costs. Don't go get you an office right off the bat. I mean, find a spot that you can work remotely, or if you have to, work from home. You are going to spend some money on marketing costs. And people ask, well, Scott, what's that cost going to be? Is that going to be huge? I'm like, listen, really? If you look at email campaigns, you look at probably needing to have a website, and then probably attending a few events or working some things on your logos and your LLC or 2 that you need to have. You're probably going to spend about $5,000 your first year in marketing costs, if not more. It all depends on what you do. I heard somebody talk. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they talk, oh yeah, there's an event going on where they're only going to have 30 people at this event. And I'm like, okay, I don't think that's a good event to go to. Because what do you mean, $1,500 isn't worth going? I said, no, because honestly, you can find other investors to network. If you're just going to network with, don't go to events when they have 30. If you want to go to an event, you want to go where there's people at. All right. Not something where it's just 5 or 10 people, unless you're going for some one-on-one coaching or it's like a small mini mastermind. It's a different story. But there are events out there that have maybe 50 people or 100 people or not many people at all. And trust me, I've been to one, been to events that were supposed to have a lot of people, didn't have anything. So maximize your networking opportunities. You also have to realize that if you're building a runway to leaving your job, to accomplishing whatever your why it might be, you have to get the word out. And this, you have to start developing, I want to say, that image, that notoriety as being the person that your tribe, your warm market turns to for advice, for counsel on real estate. That means, hey, getting the word out to your local meetup groups, getting the word out to your RIA clubs that are in the neck of the woods, maybe starting a special interest group, a SIG group in your local RIAs if they don't focus on note investing, but there are other group of you. That's one of the best ways, to really grow your experience and accomplish things. If you want to go quickly, go by yourself. But if you want to go far, go with others. Maybe you've heard that quote. You got to, and what's so great about the note industry, note business, is there's a lot of great ways to partner up with people, to have people that maybe or have a strength that is your weakness. We've had quite a few of our coaching students get together and break down due diligence on deals. One's pulling rent rates, one's pulling pictures. They're both doing a deep dive, breaking down servicing notes, whatever it might be. And they're also to raise easier. It's easier for them to raise capital in a bigger, brighter way because they're leveraging each other's strengths and getting things done. I'm a big proponent that if you really want to get to a spot and you're struggling to find success, it's probably because you're trying to do it all yourself. Now, what I mean by that, we've had students that have a very demanding job. If you've got a job that you love, great. But if you got a job that you hate, you're really probably shackled to get some stuff done. And then you come home and you're trying to get your dream done. But then, what happens a lot of times, your other things kind of fall by the wayside. Family, spouses, kids. And you don't want to do that. You got to live. You got to have some fun with your family, right? But if you're trying to do it all yourself, you don't want to create a second job for you when you hate your first job. Okay. I've got family members that have hated their jobs and they come home and they're just bears. And I've been there before when I worked a job I disliked too. You're just like, oh, I just hate my job, hating life. It makes it hard to be positive and to keep that momentum going on your side hustle. Okay. So what you need to look at doing is if you're having a hard time, you're not getting those 30 offers, you're not getting those emails out to asset managers, you're not jumping on LinkedIn because you don't have the time to do it. You probably need to hire a VA, a virtual assistant of some sort to help you get those things done. Now you can go the cheap route by going to Fiverr.com. It's Fiverr.com and hire somebody to do some individual things for you. Fiverr is great for little gigs that you have people do over and over again. Like I've got a couple of VAs on Fiverr that will do, one will do some list scrubbing for me. Another one will do some video editing that we send them and they tweak some things. That's it. They're not really marketing for me. They're tweaking our marketing. What really helps me get done more is the VA that works at least 20 hours a week, 4 hours a day, 4 to 5 hours a day. And she goes into and manages social media. She's creating images. She's actually marketing on LinkedIn. She's posting things that I don't have to do. If I don't feel good, at least I know marketing is being done for the day. She's going into my Buffer account, Buffer.com, and posting articles, posting images, posting things that can help get the word out of what I'm doing. She's also going on LinkedIn and one day out of the week going on there and contacting asset managers, sending out invites to them and getting new deals sent to me, new tapes, new assets that I can then review and go from there. Now, a lot of people are like, well, I can't afford a VA. And honestly, if you want to make 60, you want to make 60 grand or 6 figures in the next 12 to 24 months, the number one most important thing is delegation and hiring somebody. And, you can hire off of Upwork for 4 to 5, maybe $6 an hour for somebody that you got to spend time training and going through things. I think it's best to hire a company like Riva Global Real Estate VAs over there and have their team help you because they've got some really great trained VAs. Actually, we've spent a big chunk of time helping Riva Global for our students specifically, like giving them the videos on how we raise capital and finding IRA investors, how we use LinkedIn to find asset managers, what we send out in email blasts. So it's literally, we've kind of pre-trained or give them the curriculum so that their VAs are ready to rock and roll for you. Now, do I get a bit of a kickback? Yeah. Do I get an affiliate split? Yeah. If you sign up for something like that, sure I do. But it's more important that you've got somebody ready to train, that you don't have to try to reinvent the wheel, ladies and gentlemen. So if you're interested, check them out, revaglobal.com. Sign up for them, great or not, but you can start something off at 20 hours a week. And I think it's $10 an hour, still cheaper, 210 bucks a week. It's cheap compared to hiring a full-time employee, having an office, having to hire a laptop, having to pay overhead for those folks. We all know that's really going to be less than like 10 hours a week for most people. You could double what you get done without the overhead, without having the payroll costs too for you, by having somebody help you while you're at the job. They're doing things, they're answering emails, they're doing due diligence for you, they're finding deals for you. Because you think about that, if you close on one deal, let's just say you end up closing on one note that pays you $500 a month. Well, $500 a month over 12 months is what? That's $6,000, right? And that's just on the front end side. After 12 months, if you bought it and got it reperforming, you could sell it probably at a 20 to 25 or 30% markup over what you paid. That pays for your VA right there, ladies and gentlemen. Let's say you end up buying a deal that you end up foreclosing, you make 20 grand, 30 grand on the flip. That's what you should be looking for. That's going to pay for your whole VA for the whole year. But many of us can't understand the fact that paying a VA is not an expense. It's an investment in your business, an investment in you getting things done. Okay. You have to learn to delegate. You can't be the person going out there and trying to do it all, because it is not effective. And anytime I've seen a dip, is because we went through new personnel and then we had to spend time training them. Look, your VAs are going to help you out the most by communicating with them on a weekly or daily basis. What's going on? You have to realize that 70% effectiveness is the best thing for you to right off the bat. And you hone and you work them to get up to 75, 80, 90% of what you would do. Even sometimes they're going to do better than you. Our VAs have always end up doing a better job than I would do, because I'm like, oh, I love it, because they're focused on a few things. It allows me to focus on my, as I say, income driving model. What's going to make me the most amount of money? What's the most effective thing they'd be doing here, versus getting bogged down in to-do lists that I should delegate to somebody. As somebody has said to me many times, if you're focused on $10 an hour activities, you're going to have a $10 an hour bank account. And you have to get back beyond that. I know it's hard. Maybe you do have to wait a month to start off with something. Maybe you get somebody who's also investing in both, hire a VA and you split the cost down the road. That's something that I think is highly, so that you can, now you're implementing more each week and realize, oh, this is starting to pay for themselves. I mean, one of the easiest things that you could have VAs do is have them reach out on the county records or reach out for private investors for you to help you raise private capital. Then you really need just one hit for help you fund that deal, that first deal, to help pay for the VA, to help you really take your business to the next level. So those are the things. Look at your runway, plan out a year, plan out the numbers you take a look at. Like, remember, no matter how mids you want to try, if you're going to have about a 10% close ratio on offers that you get accepted, and going from there. So 90 deals, 90% of these you're probably going to end up killing that you make offers on, because of due diligence, pricing, counters, taxes, whatever. You may fade your bid that may not come through. So, but it all comes down to how many offers you're making. You got to expect you're probably going to make 4 times the amount of offers than you get accepted, if not more. And you keep track of this, keep a spreadsheet. One of the best things and best ways for you to find deals is make offers initially. If they get countered, or you come back to lowball, but then you follow up with that seller. Just had that happen 2 days ago. Get a listing of 436 first liens. I'm like, wait a second, I recognize some of these, because I look at specific cities. Like, there were 2 in Corpus Christi, Texas, where I grew up. I'm like, wait a second, I recognize those addresses. And I go back into my Excel spreadsheets and my computer. I'm like, I made offers on these 3 months ago. They didn't sell. They didn't accept my offer. They didn't sell. So I go back to what my offer is, and I'm like, hey, these didn't sell 3 months ago. What's the situation? Why didn't they sell? Did you get buyers on them above my price? Hey, these are the bids I submitted 3 months ago. Hey, they're still good. I did a deeper due diligence, or I did more due diligence initially, because you'll see asset values on a spreadsheet, Zillow values, which we know aren't accurate. And somebody pulls numbers and they see it and they get scared and they run away. If you understand numbers and the ability to fade stuff, instead of just canceling the bid, fading your bid down and sharing your due diligence with the seller, it's a great way to find deals after the fact. Okay. 30, 60, 90 days after you made offers that weren't accepted or they supposedly sold them, just follow up with your sellers. And that's one thing that you can have your VA do. Hey, follow up with the seller, see if they sold these assets. If they didn't close, let's see if they'll accept our offers now. And it's just that little bit of follow-up, having somebody kind of a personal assistant who can kind of fall behind you, pick up the crumbs and help fill in the gaps. Because we, as an entrepreneur, especially if you're juggling a full-time job, a side hustle, and family and friends and everything else that we all have going on, and we all get 24 hours a day. Those that are most effective are the ones that make the most of the 24 hours a day. Now, you could be like Elon Musk, which he says instead of working 40 hours a week, he was working 80 hours a week. You got twice as much done. I know that sometimes isn't going to be feasible for us all, because you got to take a break. You got to unwind a little bit. You got to enjoy it. But that's why it's important. Build your runway. Start looking at your hours. Start time blocking. If you've got extra time at night, in the middle of the day, in the morning, whenever, on the weekends, make sure you spend the time to get in there, put the hour or two in. If it's a side hustle, because every little bit you do gets you further along that step. Okay. Then you've got to go in and take action. So that's just time blocking. Make sure and go through that. If your family is giving you crap because you've burned a bridge from doing too many side hustles or Ginsu knives or soap or medicine, we say, hey, folks, give me a year, help support me for the next 12 months. If I'm no further along in the next 6 months, or the next 12 months, then I agree with you. I'll go on and move on to something else. Okay. But if you were to go back to school or going to study some things, it'd all be supportive. It's the same thing. Hey, I'm trying to launch. This is where I see the opportunity and where I want to go, and help me get there faster. And I can go a whole lot faster with your support versus having to fight it uphill. So look at your part-time schedule, guys. If you're a full-time, now if you are a full-time investor, you've gotten laid off, guess what? You better get to work. Okay. That means Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you've got to have something going on to asset managers. Monday, you probably want to be communicating with your investors. There's a whole thing to do depending on what you're focused on. That'll be another episode talking about which asset classes to focus on, depending on what your goals are, and going from there. So I think we're probably a good stopping point for the day here. So don't be embarrassed that, hey, I got to do this for 6 or 12 months. Everybody starts off with a side hustle. It's okay. But the more dedicated you are, more diligent you are in a little bit of activities each day, or helping delegate that to somebody else. If you want to know what your worth is, here's a really easy formula. Take what you want to make in 12 months. Okay. And let's just use some round numbers. Let's say 6 figures. And a lot of people are like, oh, I want to make 100 grand. Great. 100 grand divided by 50 weeks, because there's at least 2 weeks off. That comes out to what? That's 2 grand per week. Well, if you're working 40 hours per week, which is a normal aspect of things, that means you're worth $50 an hour. Anything that's less than $50 an hour, admin, scheduling things, is below you. You're losing money if you're doing those activities. But if you're doing something that's worth more than $50 an hour, marketing, phone calls, meetings with banks, stuff like that, evaluating things, and you delegate that below $50 an hour, you're actually now compounding your efforts and making money and being more productive. Look, when I first got into it, I love working in my yard. Now, don't be wrong, I like working in my yard. It's COVID. I haven't been able to go anywhere for the most part. So yeah, I enjoy our yard work. It doesn't take me long to mow, but if I'm at a spot where I don't enjoy mowing, it's not something I do, and it takes me 2 hours to mow or 2 hours to do an oil change, and you want to make 100 grand, 2 hours of your time is worth $100. If you can give the neighborhood kid $25 or $50 and mow your yard, and he gets it done in 2 hours, and you can now take those 2 hours instead of you mowing and put it to something else productive, then you're merely making $150 in an hour, because you got that $100 towards your time. And then you got back your time, because that was a beautiful thing. The kid's doing it. Now, yes, somebody goes, oh, you really only made 50 because you got to pay the kid 50. Yeah, but think about what you can get done. All right. That's the thing. Look at what your time is worth. Many of us sell ourselves short on time and are working way below our pay grades. Okay. If you've never made 50 grand a year, it's probably because you're working at $25 an hour. Okay. Or less. You value yourself of just barely above minimum wage. We are all worthy of more if you put the time in. Okay. And networking, communicating, marketing, raising capital, looking at deals are all the things that you need to be focused on more so than anything else. There are some great tools out there to help you do diligence and streamline things. But for the love of God, and bless your hearts, you need to start taking action. You need to delegate. You can't do it all yourselves. Trust me, we've all been there, tried to do it. You do not want to be the thing strangling your business, okay? You don't want to be that focal point in the spigot that holds everything up. You want to let things flow and things get done. Empower your VAs, empower your friends or joint venture partners or people you're partnering up with. Heck, find an accountability partner is one of the fastest ways too to get going, because they'll hold your feet to the fire. And we're more likely not going to flick on our friend, but we'll flick on the guy that or the gal we look in the mirror every morning. So take action. Find, if you've got limited hours, 5 hours, 10 hours a week, find out what's be the most impactful. Make sure you make the most of that. And if you're not getting enough stuff done, then you got to hire somebody. And a virtual assistant is a great way to do it, to help you get more stuff done in a timely fashion. Being such big in the podcast industry, I always see posts from people out there. Oh man, I got to edit everything. I got to edit myself. And I'm like, you can find somebody for 15 to 20 bucks an hour to edit your podcast online overseas. This can do just as good a job for you. But if you're filming a podcast that takes you 30 minutes to record, and then it takes you 2 hours to edit it, that's not an effective use of your time. You should be delegating. So learn to delegate, try to look at stuff. I get it. It can be difficult sometimes if you're on a bootstrap budget like many people are, but start looking at those little things that you can maybe cut out of your budget, that you can put it towards more effective tools and staff virtually. Doesn't have to be next door. It could be next country over there. So go out, take some action, everybody. That's all I've got for you today on this episode of the Note Closure Show. If you're struggling with things and need an idea of what can you delegate, hey, feel free to reach out to me. Our friends at Riva have actually put together a report on the 100 things that you can easily delegate out. So it's a great starting point to kind of make a hot list of things that you can look to delegate. So reach out to me. Glad to share that list, or go to rivaglobal.com and you can download that report as well on the 100 things to delegate immediately. So go out, take some action, everybody, and we'll see you all at the top. Bye.